In the Scottish countryside, on a farm, lives a girl named Maisie who is preparing a cake for her father with the help of her mother, Rose. Her husband is disabled and struggles to speak clearly. After Maisie gives the gift to her father, she takes a photo with him. Minutes later, she gives him his medication, and just as she is giving him the cake, suddenly, someone knocks on the door asking for help. The man outside says his brother is injured because they had an accident. She says she can't help, but then changes her mind and opens the door for them. Rose notices that the man is badly hurt, so she brings him to the kitchen table. After removing the object from his body, she asks Maisie to help by pressing on the wound so she can stitch it up. At that moment, Maddie says his name after Rose asks him. Rose tells Maddie that his brother needs to rest for a while. Moments later, she invites Maddie to eat and wants to know what happened. He explains that they had an accident because it's dark and raining heavily outside, and he had to bring his injured brother from far away. He says that he and his brother's friend, Jack, were heading out to go boating. When Rose asks where they were going by boat, Jack appears and says they were going fishing. Jack sits at the table and thanks Rose, but she tells him he should thank Maddie. Jack says he's going to call someone to pick them up, but Rose tells him there won't be any signal until the storm passes, and that the family doesn't have a phone, computer, or TV. Rose explains that these things are useless to them because they live on a farm. She mentions that there's a phone on the road, but she will only take them there in the morning. However, Jack insists that he needs to make the call now. A few minutes later, the two go to the bathroom, and there Jack questions Maddie, asking where the other bag is. If they don't manage to get the things, it will be bad for them. Maddie believes he left the other bag in the car on the road. Moments later, while Rose and Maisie are discussing the situation, Maddie starts having a crisis downstairs. Jack says that the notebook and other things Maddie needs are in the car, and he asks for help to go to the car to retrieve Maddie's belongings. However, Rose says she won't take him there because the roads are too dangerous, but she feels for Maddie and tells Jack that they need to be quick because she can't miss the time to give her husband his medication. As soon as Jack puts the frame back on the wall, Maisie tells Jack that she had a brother named Ollie, but he died after their father had the accident, and she doesn't remember him. After Jack talks with Maddie about what their mother was like, Jack gets ready to leave, and Rose locks the door to the room where Maddie is, saying that she can't leave a man she doesn't know alone with her daughter. After they hit the road, Jack thought Rose was a nurse, but she confirms that she was an anesthetist. He also comments on the loss of her child. Meanwhile, at the house, Maisie says she wants to talk to Maddie because she has never spoken to anyone except her mother. Maisie then enters the room after Maddie responds that he never saw his mother because she was ill before he was born. Moments later, Rose and Jack arrive at the location where the car Jack was in had the accident. Jack retrieves the bag, and Rose sees a dead man inside the car. As they're in the car, Jack comments on this, and at that moment, he overpowers Rose and demands that she take him to the public phone she mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, at the house, Maddie tries to open a door, but Maisie says it's the mother's workshop, and no one is allowed to enter. Maisie takes Maddie to another room and turns on the radio to listen to music. As Jack leaves the car to use the public phone to communicate with another criminal who has the money on a farm, Rose manages to grab an object. However, Jack surprises her and says that a very dangerous man is heading toward her farm and that they need to return and get the money. Meanwhile, as Maisie and Maddie are talking, a news report on the radio reveals that he and Jack are wanted for robbery. This makes Maddie nervous, and he is unable to turn off the radio, eventually breaking Maisie's radio. He then explains to Maisie that Jack forced him to do it. She says she'll pretend she didn't hear anything, and that they need to go downstairs before their mother arrives. When Jack arrives, he takes all three hostage in the living room and tells them not to do anything because they'll be leaving the next day. Rose asks Jack to let her give her husband his medication, and Maddie goes with her. As they're in the kitchen, Rose says it's not right how Jack speaks to him. Suddenly, Jack notices a car approaching and asks who it is, but no one knows. When he goes to check, he discovers it's a police officer, and he tells Rose to handle the situation. As the officer enters, he explains that 3 men are being sought nationwide and are in all the news. Rose says that the news doesn't reach their area. When the officer is informed that only the 2 of them live there, he notices additional dishes and Rose explains that they are mementos of her deceased son. He asks her to make some coffee, and while she's preparing it, he looks at the photographs on the wall. As the officer approaches her husband, she comes in and says she needs to give him his medication because it's getting late. Before leaving, the officer asks about the son she mentioned earlier and then inquires about the girl in the photo. He comments that the girl was missing and mentions that the mother had a different name. At that moment, her husband appears and asks for help. Jack then attacks, and the 2 start fighting. Meanwhile, Maisie hits Maddie with a bottle, and the police officer manages to subdue Jack. When he recognizes Maisie, Rose shoots with a shotgun. Maisie, shocked by what Rose did, hears the officer talking, but Rose covers up the situation and then administers the medication to her husband. Maisie is frightened by Rose's actions, but Rose explains that she did it for her and claims that the officer was going to take Maisie away with him. Moments later, Rose locks Jack and Maddie in the basement and asks Maisie to help her move the officer. Maisie takes the police officer's phone and hides it, and then the two of them get into the car. Meanwhile, in the basement, Jack tries to wake Maddie. When they arrive at the location, Rose shoots at the police officer's car to make it look like he was involved in a shootout with the wanted men. Jack manages to grab a tool to free himself. Maisie questions Rose once more, and Rose responds that she wants to protect her and asks her to stop asking questions. Back in the basement, Jack tells Maddie about what Rose did, and Maddie believes that she is hiding something very serious and that they need to get out of there as soon as possible. After several attempts, Jack manages to free himself, and they use a tool to cut their way out. Instead of leaving through the main part of the basement, they find a new exit. Once they are outside, Maddie suggests they should leave, but Jack says they can't because they need to retrieve the bag of money. Jack tells Maddie to go to the sheep barn to keep watch, but Maddie begins to have another crisis. Jack starts blaming Maddie for the things that have happened to them, such as Maddie killing the son of the man who was coming to retrieve the money. After Maddie says he would have preferred if Jack had died instead of their mother, Jack reveals that their mother didn't die. She left because she couldn't handle Maddie's crying and complaining. As Maddie heads to the sheep barn, Jack climbs a tree and manages to re-enter the house. Maddie sees the two women arriving in the car, and Maisie asks why they don't just take the money and leave. Rose responds that they're not going to run away and that the house belongs to them. Meanwhile, Jack enters a room and observes a very debilitated woman. While looking at some pictures on the wall, Jack discovers that the man is not Rose's husband. The woman he sees is actually Maisie's real mother, Jenny, and she is the wife of the man in the wheelchair. He also notices that the room has images from the house's security cameras, which the woman was watching. Rose tells Maisie to go inside the house and orders her not to leave until everything is over. At that moment, Rose notices a sheep and, growing suspicious, goes to check and realizes that the two have escaped. Back in the secret room, the woman asks Jack to end her suffering, and he does so. Meanwhile, in the barn, Rose is searching for Jack, but ends up finding Maddie. When Maddie tells her that Jack and his mother abandoned him, Rose says he reminds her of the son she lost and suggests that they stay together. She promises to take care of him. Moments later, Jack confronts Maisie and reveals the truth that Rose is not her real mother. He explains that the accident killed her real mother and her husband. Maisie only believes him when Jack shows her a photo. At that moment, she remembers her mother's face and asks Jack where she is. Jack lies and says he doesn't know. He then orders Maisie to get her father and bring him to the truck while he tries to capture Maddie. Jack goes to the barn and realizes that Maddie is no longer there. Maisie suggests they should escape, but Jack tells her to wait. When Jack returns to the house, he finds Maddie, but suddenly Rose appears and shoots at him. She demands Maisie back, and Jack reveals that he knows what Rose has done, as he saw everything from upstairs. He also tells her that Maisie has already escaped. At that moment, Jack surprises Rose by attacking her, but when he is about to finish her off, Maddie stops him. Soon after, Maisie arrives at the house and helps Jack escape. During the chase, Maisie reveals that she knows the whole truth, but Rose tries to convince her that she is still her mother because she raised her from a young age. Just then, a car appears, and Maddie warns Jack that it's Mac, the man they need to give the money to. Jack runs and hides near Mac. Mac asks Jack where his money is, and Jack replies that it's with the woman and also mentions that she took his son. However, Mac doesn't believe him and decides to subdue Jack. As he comes out from behind the car, Mac shoots Jack. Maddie reveals that Jack didn't kill Mac's son. While Mac threatens Rose and Maddie, Jack attacks him, and then Rose shoots. One of Mac's men tries to subdue Rose, but Maddie also attacks him. The man hits Maddie, and as he gets up to finish off Rose, Maisie runs him over with a car. After that, Maisie is at the police station, where an officer promises her that Rose will be arrested. The scene then shifts to Rose and Maddie having a meal on another farm. Rose looks directly at the camera, and we see Jack locked in another room, watching everything unfold. To explain further, after Rose suffered an accident and lost her husband and son, she decided to take in the daughter, who is actually Jenny, and the husband of the woman who was blamed for the accident. She keeps both of them imprisoned with her and the other woman in a room to watch everything. To prevent the man from speaking out, she overdoses him on medication, and she did the same to Maddie afterward, adopting him and leaving Jack imprisoned. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, share your thoughts on the content, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications to receive more videos like this. Thank you for watching.